He's a hard worker, drives you hard and wants to get the absolute max out of every moment. Never settles, but is incredibly inventive and full of fantastic stories. And he's a sweetheart. I'm so full of respect and admiration for him.
When we think of a prolific yet tumultuous career in Hollywood, a name stands out amongst the crowd. In a roller coaster of events, from stardom, rock bottom, and returning as one of the most well-known actors in the industry thanks to his incredible portrayal of his roles and charismatic demeanor. From his hardships to his incredible retribution. This is Robert Downey Jr.
Everybody on the sidewalk!
Now, first of all, Robert, back as Sherlock, back as Iron Man, what is it about those two characters, the two franchises, that kind of just draws you back in?
Got the feeling in your bones, make you feel right at home.
Robert was born on the 4th of April, 1965 in Greenwich Village, New York. His mother, Elsie Downey, was an actress, and his father, Robert Downey Sr., was an underground yet fearless visionary director who would go to set the standards for countercultural comedy in the 1960s and 70s.
Did you always feel like you could let the actors go, or is that something you came around to?
Oh, no. You mean my whole life?
Yeah.
Well, a lot of times I've worked with non-actors.
Right.
And that's kind of interesting, too, because you get what you get. And once in a while, if you try and force them into what conventional acting is, they don't know what to do. So that's kind of frustrating. With these guys, you can kind of arrive and realize an idea and then ask for another one. And they're more than ready, and then they'll add another one. And it's just, especially with some of these guys, I mean, it was hard to pick what to pick in the editing. It was hard.
Though his original surname was Elias, the Downey name came to light once his father enlisted in the Army. Robert grew up with his sister Allison, and being surrounded by the arts, began to pick up an interest in acting and music from a young age. Robert's close relationship with his father, Robert Downey Sr., landed the young Robert a role in his father's film, Pound, in 1970. This would be Robert's first appearance on screen, playing the role of a sick dog.
Morning we go upstairs, there's no more furniture, the roof's gone, and so's my hair. That tornado scared me so much it made my hair disappear.
Have any hair on your bowl?
Well, were you improvising back then, or because that line seemed a little unorthodox for a 5-year-old?
It didn't. I still, God bless my dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it easier or more difficult to work for your dad?
Easier.
Why?
Because he's my dad, you know, he knows me so well. And also I think he genuinely is concerned with nothing but my well-being as an artist in this art form. So he has no agenda other than helping me explore myself. And in this case, the darker, more twisted aspects of my psyche.
Does he push you harder than other directors? Or do you want to work
He
harder?
pushes me easier, you know. It's like he knows I'm gonna give 1,000%. And he just kind of sets a stage for me. Yeah, he expects a lot, you know. He expects a lot.
Unfortunately, the young Robert's childhood was not one of stability. Drugs surrounded the young boy and his sister throughout their household. And by the age of just 7 years old, Robert Downey Sr. would offer his son a joint of marijuana, and young Robert reciprocated. Unfortunately, such experience would act as a gateway for Robert, and this would go on to be the greatest regret his father ever possessed, knowing almost immediately that it was a terrible decision. At the age of 13, Robert's parents would get divorced. His sister, Allison, would move to an alternative boarding school in Vermont, whilst Downey Jr. would move from New York to Los Angeles, California, with his father. The idea of school didn't sit well for the young Robert. With the inspirations from his family still lingering, in 1982, he dropped out of Santa Monica High to pursue his dream of a full-time acting career. Now, 18, Robert returned to his roots in New York rather than break into Hollywood.
On one level, I'm happy to be a working actor, you know? The odds for that going on are pretty slim. And on the other hand, I felt like I never really paid that much attention. And I think part of that was from wanting to be cavalier or non-committal, so if it all blew up in my face, I could say, well, that's not what I really wanted to do anyway, you know? Because at a certain point, this sentence came in my head of, you can't do that, you know? And it seemed to really make sense. It didn't seem like it was really, you know, the devil's advocate part of me doing it, like it was just the logical part doing it, so, you know, I mean.
You felt like, to the point where you just kind of felt like running the other way, you mean?
Sure. I mean, you put on a tramp outfit, you know, and go try to, you know, make it where you just go like, you know, it's not often that it's possible.
He chose to work on small productions, such as Firstborn in 1984. Here, Robert would get his first glimpse at romance. He met Sarah Jessica Parker on set, and the two were immediately smitten with one another. They would soon form a loving relationship, and the couple moved into a house within only weeks after meeting. Over time, his former co-star and lover, Sarah, would become more and more concerned of Robert's behavior as it became apparent a serious drug habit was forming. Eventually, she felt supporting him was more akin to being a mother than a girlfriend. In 1985, Robert joined the cast for Saturday Night Live following the return of host Lorne Michaels. Alongside Robert, the new cast would go on to include Dennis Miller, John Lovitz, and Anthony Michael Hall, all of whom were selected to boost the show's ratings. In the same year, Robert had acting breakthroughs while working on Tough Turf and Weird Science. Though not a core member, he would go on to be associated with the Brat Pack, a group of young actors predominantly featured in the John Hughes American teen films.
Second thing, it makes me feel so good that you, for lack of a better term, you've escaped the clutches of that so-called Brat Pack thing, where you're on your own as an actor. Does that bother you when you're associated with those people and they say, oh, Downey, oh yeah, he's one of those guys who's whatever?
Well, it's funny because I've never been in the room with any of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, yeah, I guess, I don't know, you know. I'm just, you know, whatever.
Well, you know what I mean. What I'm saying is that a lot of people think that you're just associated with just a group of young guys who came along at a certain time and doing that certain kind of movie.
Yeah.
And that's not, I mean, does that bother you when people do that? When they?
I don't know. I think what bothers me is when I'm not happy with my work in a film and everything else is pretty much secondary. I mean, you know, career-wise, I mean.
He attended the premieres with Sarah Jessica Parker. At such time, his addiction to drugs and alcohol only worsened thanks to his rising popularity. It was starting to become extremely difficult for her to hold on with his ever-growing wild lifestyle. His career was a crescendo, flying higher and higher into stardom. In 1987, Robert secured his first lead role in the feature film, The Pickup Artist. From here, Robert Downey Jr. would make a performance that would ultimately foreshadow his emotional decline. He gave an incredibly memorable performance in Less Than Zero, a film adaptation of Bret Easton Ellis's novel. The film depicted Robert as Julian, a rich kid whose life is led astray, derailed due to his severe heroin addiction. he becomes cut off from his family and is reduced to a homeless junkie, dying from heart failure. A role which would, unfortunately, go on to closely mirror Robert's own life. Robert was surrounded by people who loved and supported him. Laurie Rodkin, his first manager, would often lie about Robert's sobriety in order to maintain Downey's career. Laurie begged Robert to attend rehab, which Robert did, only to return and fire Laurie. Despite being fired, Laurie claimed her attempts were worthwhile, stating, "Every day I look in the newspaper and think I'm going to read Robert's obituary." In 1991, Robert's girlfriend of 7 years, Sarah Jessica Parker, broke up with Robert. It was a long internal struggle, as she feared without her interference and support, he would most certainly kill himself. In order to test his artistic limits and fight against his ongoing addiction, Robert would try out for one of the most prestigious roles of his career. And with a great deal of expectations and social pressure, the 26-year-old would play Charlie Chaplin in the 1992 film, Chaplin, a role he prepared for vigorously, such as learning how to play violin and tennis left-handed. His posture and physical demeanor needed a complete renovation in order to transform into this much-loved individual.
But I mean, that was so real to me in the beginning. I mean, that feeling that I sensed that you would live that too, in the sense, talking about depression, about feeling bad about yourself. Did you go through periods of that?
Well, yeah, I had to do this movie. I was like, you know, all of my fear and everything came up before doing this film, because this was like saying, can you really do what you've always hoped and wanted to do? So it's like, you know, it was like a real judgment day for me.
What did you hope and want to do?
I hoped I could bring him to life on screen, and I wanted to do it for myself and for Richard, who had had the faith to give me the opportunity.
Well, I mean, that's quite a challenge. I mean, I remember reading an essay by Max Sennett a long time ago, and he said something like, Charlie Chaplin, he's simply the greatest artist in the history of the world.
I feel the same way. But I couldn't think that way when I was doing it. I had to think of relaxing, but luckily there was Richard brought a lot of really smart people on to help me, people who were really the best in so many different areas that I felt really supported, and I felt really, you know, like as safe as I was going to feel.
On release, the feature garnered Robert huge critical success. He was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Actor and won a BAFTA for his outstanding performance.
Well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
Very well-deserved nomination.
Oh, thank you.
What's the meaning? What does it mean to you, the nomination, the part of being in...
Well, I think it means that Richard Attenborough really helped craft something, you know, I guess special enough for people to appreciate it, and it's about Charlie Chaplin and watching Charlie Chaplin movies, and that's why we made it.
Now, do you think about winning, about chances? What is your attitude towards that when you're competing with 4 other actors?
I don't know. Well, Chaplin used to say that that these kind of things implied that people were in competition with each other, but rather I think it's just, you know, I don't know what to think. It's my first time.
Well, hope to see you in the press room with the award.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
What do you enjoy about being nominated for an Academy?
Picking out my clothes, and no. What I mean, the enjoyment is also that you realize, wow, you know, that I really am in this for the long run, and that you know, I'm going to be that I intend to do this for a long time, and I intend to get more involved, and hopefully my integrity will flourish. And so, you know, something happened, and again, it really was largely Richard Attenborough's confidence in me, and his, you know, his body of work helped me have confidence in myself.
Skills, did you feel like it was like the role of a lifetime as far as you having to put more into this role than maybe other roles in your past?
Sure, I think, you know, you say, for the last 10 years I was thinking, why don't I ever get those? Why don't I ever? And then I got it, you know, and then it's a very different thing was being offered the role from actually doing it. So, yeah.
With this rise in success, Robert's personal life was beginning to garner wide public attention. And soon, the media were very aware of Robert's ongoing struggle with drug use.
Perfect is Only You the perfect date movie to see with your lovely wife, Deborah?
Oh, it's one of them, yeah.
Robert would marry Deborah Falconer, who gave birth to their son, Indio Falconer Downy. Following this, Robert dug a hole to dispose of his original costume from Less Than Zero. His vow to remove drugs from his life ended in 1994 as Robert returned to cocaine, ecstasy, and alcohol. Though Indio remains a huge part of Robert's life, Robert was not in the correct state of mind, and his wife Deborah sought to raise their child despite her husband's health. In 1995, for the first time in Robert's life, he would take black tar heroin.
Yeah, let's talk later. Robert, this way, please.
The young Downey found himself out of control, referring to himself as a lovable tornado, going from film sets to rehab daily. Robert would be disappointed with his performances and slowly began to lose interest in the quality of his work.
I felt like I never really paid that much attention. And I think part of that was from wanting to be cavalier or non-committal, so if it all blew up in my face, I could say, well, that's not what I really wanted to do anyway, you know?
Robert's wife, Deborah, left with his son, Indio. Following this, Robert would also lose his home in Malibu. From 1996, he would be couch surfing from one sketchy location to another, his condition worsening each day. He would go on to get kicked out of an apartment for losing the key, and he was pulled over for speeding in his Porsche. The officers found Robert was completely naked, hallucinating, and is reported to have been trying to throw imaginary rats at the officers. On another occasion, he was discovered curled up in a fetal position behind a grungy LA hotel. For the first time in Robert's life, he was arrested. Robert was speeding in his black Ford Explorer along the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. The officers discovered 0.42 grams of heroin, 1.49 grams of cocaine, and 0.32 grams in crack. He also had an unloaded .357 Magnum in the car, with 4 bullets in the glove box. Whilst awaiting trial, he was arrested once more after wandering into a neighbor's residence in Malibu. After stripping to his underwear, he climbed into the empty bed of the neighbor's young child. In the morning, the neighbor was shocked to discover Robert curled up in her son's bed, and after attempting to wake him, called the police immediately.
There's a strange man in my child's bed. He's unconscious.
He was completely out of it.
Robert required immediate resuscitation by medics at the USC Medical Center. Judge Lawrence Myra ordered him to undergo a 24-hour drug rehabilitation program at the Exodus Recovery Center in Marina del Rey. It wasn't long before Robert escaped through the bathroom window and hitchhiked back to his home. Just 4 hours later, Robert was recaptured and jailed for 9 days, after which he was supervised in rehab. On the 11th September 1996, Robert Downey Jr. pleaded no contest to felony drug possession and misdemeanor charges of possessing a weapon and driving under the influence.
I said, Robert, I believe that you had bipolar disorder. He said, yes, I do have bipolar disorder. There are periods of times that I'm so hyper and I spend a lot of money, I'm irritable, and there are periods of times that I go down.
That concludes proceedings.
For past several years, he's just going through the revolving door of rehab program and being arrested, which is too sad, such a bright person, and he's not a criminal. He's a victim of the drugs.
Robert would remain in rehab for 6 more months, where he was required to submit drug tests frequently and attend daily meetings. In December 1997, Robert was sent to the LA County Men's Central Jail after his counselor testified about a missed drug test in October. During his jail time, Robert was subjected to many fights and vicious beatings, reportedly waking up in a pool of his own blood. He was a target due to his celebrity status and being a pretty boy. He received a severe gash from an argument with 3 other inmates and needed to be moved to solitary confinement for his own safety. After 113 days, Robert was released and immediately checked into a 120-day rehab program where Robert remained on probation. The judge ruled for a 24 strict rehabilitation center.
Watch out, Robert. There's a grass thing back here.
Excuse me, can we get to court? Please, that's all we want. Hey.
Hey, Robert.
Jesus.
I'm running out of resources to keep you out of state prison. I'm going to incarcerate you in a way that's very unpleasant for you. I'm doing that because I believe if you understand that's where you're going, maybe it'll save your life.
Following this, Robert would then be sent to the California Substance Abuse Treatment Facility and State Prison in Corcoran, California. The climate of the prison was much harsher than the previous state penitentiary. Guard towers surrounded the walls, and Charles Manson was located in the maximum security wing next door. With such a hostile environment, Robert was extremely frightened. The experience at the penitentiary was scarring. Robert would attempt to survive by keeping his head down and performing his duties, often being scolded and harassed by other inmates, such as when Downy was given death threats simply for spitting into the sink while brushing his teeth.
Were you afraid?
The first day I was kind of scared, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there was a lot of stuff that happened that doesn't bear mentioning because things are violent, and there's certain things that you do when you enter that system that you wouldn't care to do on the street, but it's part of the deal.
Robert struggled. Not being able to be a father to his son took a mental toll. It was heartbreaking to tell Indio the truth about his incarceration, and debated lying to his wife, Deborah, stating he wanted to tell Indio he was going to Yugoslavia to become a spy, until Deborah eventually made him tell the truth. Finally, in the year 2000, Robert was released from prison, having served his time and, with a stroke of luck, was able to sign on to Ally McBeal, a television drama series. Soon after, he was arrested in the Palm Springs Hotel under the influence of Valium and cocaine. Miraculously, he managed to sign on for more episodes of Ally McBeal despite a possible 4-year sentence looming over him. Sadly, his attempted retribution did not come to pass, as in April 2001, Robert was found wandering around Culver City barefoot. Cocaine was found in his system. Though he was released, the Ally McBeal executives fired Downey from the show, and his wife, Deborah, officially divorced. Though she allowed visitations for Indio, the stress procured from her ex-husband was far too difficult to maintain. Downey pleaded no contest to the charges which loomed over him. During this period, California Proposition 36 was passed, a proposition which assisted in sending drug offenders to rehab as opposed to jail. Due to this, Downey was sentenced to 3 years of probation and drug rehabilitation. Understanding Robert's situation, Elton John lent a gracious helping hand, giving Robert a job lip-syncing for the music video of his song, I Want Love. The public would often say this was the kickstart to Robert's new life. It was clear that upon returning to Hollywood, Robert possessed no financial safety. His wife had left him, and he had no home to return to. It was thanks to Mel Gibson, who put a roof over Robert's head. Mel would provide him food and shelter. Gibson gave Robert the opportunity to play a role intended for Gibson himself in The Singing Detective. Not only this, Mel paid for Robert's full insurance bond. Downey made his return to the mainstream industry with Gothica. Joel Silver, the producer, would refuse to pay Robert 40% of his salary until the production had wrapped as insurance for Robert's past misdemeanors. On the set of Gothica, Robert met Susan Nicole Levin, an executive vice president for Silver Pictures. The two hit it off, and Susan remained skeptical that his advances would continue after the production. But Robert, smitten, would continue to meet with her. After forming a loving relationship, Robert proposed to Susan on November 5th, the night before her 30th birthday. The two were married in August 2005, a Jewish ceremony taking place in Amagansett, New York. Slowly but surely, Robert was beginning to rise once more, obtaining huge attention for his leading role in Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, a directorial debut of Shane Black, who would remain a close friend and colleague until this day.
Robert was an angel. Aside from, standing this close all the time, so he just stares right in your eye, he's just looking at you to gauge that you're on the same page. He doesn't want condescension or solicitude. Least of all does he want your pity. He wants to do the job. Tell him what to do, tell him the task, and like a true pro, he will execute whatever assignment you give him. And that's all he wants to do now is just do the job. And he is an expert. He is a pro. And it was a joy to watch. Kilmer, same way. We did this movie in 35 days. That's the proof of the pudding. If any one of these guys had even been the least of a nuisance or a trouble, we could never have finished the movie. They were just as devoted as can be. Everybody in this film needed the film.
Robert's son, Indio, would also go on to star in the film at the age of 9, which remains his only acting credit. Robert appeared in Zodiac, directed by David Fincher. He played the role of San Francisco Chronicle journalist Paul Avery, reporting the Zodiac killer case.
Why was it important to you to be in this film?
Well, I thought it'd be fun, believe it or not. And Fincher's a great filmmaker. Made a great friend in Jake, and Mark and I have known each other for a while, and Anthony Edwards has always been one of my favorites. I just thought it'd be a blast.
And do you think this film will shed new light on the case?
I think anytime you have something that's historical fiction, although there's a lot of accuracy in it, there's nothing definitive, but I think what it'll do is retell a story that was and still is in a lot of people's psyche and the kind of the American unconscious,
Do you think people will leave the theater being haunted by the story?
If we did our job, they will.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
From this point on, it was time for Robert's career to hit high altitudes.
Open your eyes, what can you see around? Wind of the open sky, over the siren sounds. This is a dream, getting the royal scar, holding a diamond blade, throwing it far. Holding your breath still, you jump the fire. We'll just sit and wait till you see me fly. You know they'll never catch me for it. See me fly, the way I put my finger on it. See me fly.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, he's the Frank Sinatra of the Marvel Universe.
See me fly, you know they'll never catch me for it. See me fly, the way I put my finger on it. See me fly, you got it. Then try to tell me you got the wrong guy.
Despite the critical success, Robert had not starred in a blockbuster film. This all changed the day he took on the role as Tony Stark in Iron Man. The film catapulted Robert, turning him into a household name due to the popularity of the incoming Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I go to Japan. I go there. I go, please, a small problem with your passport links up to some incredible criminal. I'm like, yeah, but I'm told that, well, you did not make a claim of said activity. I was like, oh, look, I retired. How long? Well, 16 months. Blah, blah, blah. Do you know the name? Well, the first infraction you had in 1995, I was like, you know what? It's hard for me to hold it because I've been arrested so many times.
Now, Robert, of course, is brilliant as Tony Stark, and lots of people say he was born to play it.
This is, I think, the role of a lifetime for him. A lot of people thought Chaplin was. I happen to think this guy was born to be Tony Stark.
And why is that?
Well, because, you know, Robert's grown up in the public eye. Everything good and bad that's happened in his life, everybody's seen. And Tony Stark, he's a guy who's also grown up in the public eye. He's a genius. Everybody appreciates his talent. But the fact of the matter is, I think that Robert Downey Jr., he's an improviser, so he brings a certain spontaneous, you know, aspect to the humor. And I think he finds the real humanity in a character that could otherwise be a two-dimensional comic book figure.
Yeah.
Whoa, whoa!
And Robert, just do it.
Great, please.
Oh, yeah. Dude, I want one of these laminates. Are you going to talk about it? No, it's okay.
Downey would continue to branch outward during his time with Marvel. He was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor thanks to his portrayal of the eccentric, yet partially controversial method actor, Kirk Lazarus. As the early 2000s passed by, Robert would continue to remain an inspiration to both inspiring actors and recovering addicts.
It's easy to embrace hopelessness.
Do you still get urges to do drugs?
I have not even an inkling of a desire. It's not that difficult to overcome these seemingly ghastly problems.
You are saying that it's not that difficult?
No. What's hard is to decide.
Oh.
And to say, you know, it's not, I don't want to be.
That's big.
Robert, according to the press release here, it says, Robert Downey Jr. brings the legendary detective to life as he's never been portrayed before. What exactly have you got planned?
You mean in how I'm going to portray it? Yes. Well, I guess clearly I'm going to do it better than it's ever been done.
He starred as the titular character in Guy Ritchie's Sherlock Holmes in 2009, before donning his Iron Man suit once again in 2010.
Joel started my career 25 years ago, a movie called Weird Science. And, yeah. And here we are. And then I met my wife working for Joel again. And here we are. And in case you aren't aware, I had a hell of a summer. And it's made me much more viable to play a lead role than I might have in the past. And I thought the idea of Guy and the way his directing style and his strengths with a kind of very staid, you know, iconoclastic period idea like this was just kind of a no-lose situation. And then having the likes of Mark and Rachel and Kelly and Mr. Jude Law in the cast, I just felt like it was the kind of thing you just can't turn down, and I've been proven right. We're just so excited about this. And
where's your dad?
No idea.
When's the last time you saw him?
1977. He had his bags packed by the front door, and he picked them up, put them in the back of his car, and drove away. Last time I ever saw him.
It's so funny. Oh my gosh. My dad would never do that. He loved me.
Well, I think that it's the irreverence that makes this movie, and quite honestly, bachelor party movies have been done too, but The Hangover had a certain kind of reverence and a darkness underneath it that is what I feel like I bring. So to me, that was, you know, the approach on Due Date.
If I miss the birth of my child, I'm gonna choke you out with your own scarf. Wrap that thing around your neck and choke you out.
Because honestly, I'm really fortunate at this point in my career. I'm not just going to go be derivative. And I think that's why Iron Man kind of worked out well, as we did something a little bit different with that genre. So we like playing with genres, and we like not trying to improve on them, but just try to take them in a slightly different direction. I love movies, so when I go to films, I expect to not be sold the same soap over and over again. So I'm just trying to give the same respect to the audience that I expect as a movie lover.
You filming one-on-one with Robert.
Yeah, Robert's an intense guy, and but you know, there was a lot of laughing, and he's a very opinionated guy, and I like that. I like that he has a lot of experience, and I don't. So I like to listen to about his experience over and over again.
Did you feel that you learned a lot from it?
Yes, absolutely. That's the whole thing, is that, you know, Robert and I are not even that different in age, but as far as our work experience in the movies, there's a vast difference. So, I think he was a little bit I even got kind of choked up the other day and told him how much that I appreciate him, guiding me along on this movie. I really am very fond of him.
As partners not only by love, but business, Robert and his wife Susan decided to open their own production company called Team Downy, making their first project, The Judge, in 2012. Undoubtedly, the couple hold the arts in high regard and continue to provide a platform for original storytelling. After the release of The Avengers, currently the 9th highest grossing film worldwide, Robert's second son, Exton Downey, was born. His middle name? Elias, in respect of Robert's family lineage and his father. Sadly, in 2014, Robert's firstborn, Indio, was arrested for the possession of cocaine and drug paraphernalia. He agreed to go on a rehabilitation program after being pulled over by the police. Robert, after his own life experience, chose to support Indio throughout the ordeal, ensuring his child didn't take the same path as he did. With the support of his family, Indio passed his rehab without flaw, directed by his parents to follow his own path and remain mindful along the way. No doubt, the past would always haunt Robert, and dealing with the media would remain a hardship.
I took turns doing it, and it was wonderful. By the end, I was making the baby do it. I had more talcum up my nose, more powder up my nose than Robert Downey Jr.
But he's becoming a much more likable character as well, isn't he? A better man.
Yeah, he's becoming a better guy.
In a way that you are as well, I suppose.
Sure.
I mean, what I'd really like to ask you about a quote you gave to the New York Times. And I don't want to pry, so if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. But What you said to the New York Times once was, it was after your incarceration, and you said, you can't go from a $2,000 a night hotel suite to a penitentiary and understand it and come out a liberal. And I just wondered what you meant by that.
Things that you said 5, 7 years ago were things you said in an interview that made sense to you at the time. I could pick that apart for 2 hours and be no closer to the truth than I'd be giving you some half-assed answer right now. I couldn't even really tell you what a liberal is. So therein lies the answer to your question.
Does that mean you're not a liberal, or that you came out of prison not being a liberal?
Are we promoting a movie? I'm certainly not going to backpedal on anything I've said, but I wouldn't say I'm a Republican or a liberal or a Democrat. I think when I was talking to the person who was doing the interview that day, and that just happened to be my opinion.
You say we're promoting an interview, promoting the movie. I mean, obviously you're doing a promotional round of interviews, and that's why we're talking about the movie. But we also would like to talk a little bit about you, and I don't know how comfortable you are, you know, talking about yourself at the moment.
You have as much time as anyone else will.
Yeah, well, okay, well then let me just ask you a few more questions, and you can answer them if you want to and not if you don't want to. I mean...
Foot's starting to jump a little bit. You better get to your next question.
The reason I'm asking about the past is that you've talked in other interviews again about your relationship with your father and the role of all of that in, you know, the dark periods you entered and taking drugs and drinking and all of that. And I just wondered whether, you know, you think you're free of all of that, or whether that's still something...
I'm sorry, I really don't... what are we doing?
Well, I'm just asking questions, that's all.
Right.
Okay, that's okay.
Bye.
Thank you guys.
Are you... Oh, I'm sorry.
Take your mic.
It's okay.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you...
You seem okay, it's just getting a little dinosaur in your...
No, look, I don't want to do that.
Thank you.
Fine.
I was interviewing Jake Gyllenhaal a couple weeks ago. You were about 10 feet away.
Oh, yeah.
And we were talking about Zodiac, and I was asking him about the choices. We were talking about the choices you make. You make such wonderful choices now. Do you think that your 20 years, the last 20 years have really helped you, you know, decide what?
Well, I mean, if you think about it, if it's a bit of a haystack anyway, some people really grab the needle right off the bat. I'm kind of like the last stalk in the haystack. I'm like, well, it's not that, and then there's the needle. So I've had a lot of opportunity to make mistakes.
I don't think you made many, especially lately. I just saw Kiss Kiss Bang Bang.
God, you're right. I don't even know what to say. I gotta change my opinion on nails.
Every time, man.
Robert would not concern himself with who he was, instead remaining focused on what he can be. Robert and his wife celebrated the birth of his third child, Avery Roelle Downey, born on November 4th. The Marvel Universe was a worldwide phenomenon, and Robert took his final bow in 2019 upon the release of Avengers: Endgame. Today, Endgame remains the second highest grossing film worldwide, raking in $2.8 billion in lifetime gross, providing Robert's character, Tony Stark, with an ending which made fans around the world shed tears.
And as you said in the press conference, being back with Robert, it really happens that after, you know, like 3 movies now, you really became close friends. That's right, no?
We became really close friends after the first movie, you know, and I'm very close with his wife, and I love his children, his son Indio I love, and his little baby. Yeah, we're all friends. They always come and spend part of the summer with us on Long Island, and we spend a lot of time together. You know, I'm a person who really believes in, like, family, and I was raised to believe in the importance of family and loyalty and love and looking after the people you love. And, you know, that's one of the reasons Robert is one of my heroes, because he has so much thrown at him, especially now, and his values are so good, and he's such a family guy, and you know, he's come through so much, and he's come out as this amazing man with incredible values, and it's really nice to be near that.
From 2020, Robert chose to adopt a vegan diet during the promotions of Dolittle. In order to combat his own carbon footprint, he announced the opening of the Footprint Coalition, an organization tailored to developing advanced technology to protect the environment, which still remains active and thriving. As his business endeavors boomed, Robert is now seeking to reprise critically acclaimed roles. He will be featuring in The Sympathizer, directed by Park Chan-wook, and Oppenheimer, directed by Christopher Nolan. Two castings fans are incredibly excited to watch, following his massive success in the Marvel franchise. In July 2021, Robert Downey Jr. passed away after a long battle with Parkinson's disease at the age of 85. Robert was incredibly close to his father. He served as an inspiration into the arts, and after Robert's struggle with substance abuse, his overcoming served as a reconnection to those important in his life. Robert went above and beyond, paying tribute to the impact his father had on him with Senior, a documentary, revealing the life, trials, and tribulations of the man he held so dear to his heart.
Well, I actually had really good parents, and they were kind of square in a lot of ways, and they were very highly ideal people and artists, and did their very best.
The relationship with your dad, did you want to get involved in this business because of him?
Well, I remember, him being a writer and a director. I remember when I was 8 years old, I was in a movie of his, but it seemed kind of natural to me. Like, well, this is just what I'm doing. Daddy's making this, and I'm doing it too, I guess so. I mean, I really admire my father, and it seemed like he had a really good time and really got to communicate.
He and Susan remain an inseparable power couple, residing in New York and Malibu. Their continued work with Team Downey has set future projects in motion, such as the upcoming Sherlock Holmes sequel. Robert remains in close contact with his children, attending the premiere of Senior with his son Indio. It is undisputed that Robert will continue to push his children in the direction of greatness and passion, whatever path they may take. From a harsh upbringing to one of the worst downfalls in celebrity history, Robert Downey Jr. was able to not only overcome acclaimed critical hurdles, he was able to overcome himself with the support from the ones he loved. And now he remains skyrocketing upwards, inspiring millions. All with a hard-working mindset and no lack of charisma.
My mother's face, my father's heart. A good day when the fall rains start. A feeling you find no matter how far you've gone. The thing you can't quite put your finger on back home.